Hey guys, tonight we sail straight into cannon fire, shark-infested waters, and one man's totally unhinged life decision to swap rum and muskets for cabbages and compost. We're talking about the most feared pirate of the 18th century, a man whose beard literally smoked during battle, and who somehow ended up trying to grow squash in the marshy soil of North Carolina. Picture it. You're standing on the deck of a creaking wooden ship, wind howling around you, sails snapping like whips, the salty spray of the ocean stinging your eyes. Below your feet, the hull groans as it slices through the warm waters off the coast of Madagascar. You've just chased down a merchant ship and the crew is scrambling, surrendering crates of sugar, rum, maybe a few terrified passengers. You're barefoot, sunburned, teeth yellowing. Your pistol loaded, your cutlass glints in the dying light, and your beard? It's smoldering because you stuffed slow-burning cannon fuses into it because theatrics matter. But even now, standing victorious, gold in your pockets, enemies at your feet, there's a flicker of thought in the back of your mind. How long can this really last? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't know it yet, but your days as a pirate are numbered. Right now, though, you're at the top of your game. Your name isn't legendary yet. In fact, it might not even be Teach. Some records say Thatch, others Tash, and if you just scribble something vaguely pirate-like and move on. Historians still argue whether Edward Teach was born in Bristol, England, or somewhere else entirely. But one thing's for sure, whoever you were before, you've fully become someone else now. Your ship rocks gently under your feet. You're not the captain yet. You're still learning from other pirates, watching how they command respect and fear in equal measure. These waters are crowded with danger. European navies, rival crews, typhoons, reefs that love to chew up hulls like crackers. But you're learning how to sail fast, strike hard, and vanish into the spray before anyone can chase you down. You don't care much about international politics, but they've been very good for business. The War of the Spanish Succession has just ended, and suddenly there are thousands of unemployed sailors with nowhere to go and nothing to lose. Most of them are poor, desperate, and angry. Prime pirate material. You've got ex-Navy gunners, runaway slaves, even one guy who claims he used to be a monk, he swears, a little too hard that he's not cursed. And they all want what you want. Gold, freedom, and maybe, if they live long enough, a hammock to die in that's not full of lice. But piracy isn't all treasure maps and parrots. Sometimes it's just damp bread and scurvy. You sleep in shifts, always with one hand on your knife. The sun boils your skin during the day, and the damp cold seeps into your bones at night. You drink rainwater collected in barrels, and if the barrel's been used to store salt pork before, well, tough luck. At least it's not full of rats this time. Still, there's nothing like the rush of the chase. You remember one time off the coast of the Red Sea. Your ship spotted a French merchant vessel and gave pursuit. The chase lasted hours. The wind dropped halfway through, so you and half your crew took to the longboats, rowing like demons. By the time you caught up, the French captain was ready to jump overboard just to avoid facing you. You didn't kill him, though. You smiled that crooked, soot-smudged grin of yours and took his cargo instead. Brandy, silk, and a violin no one knew how to play. You gave it to the monk guy. He made it scream every night for a week. You're not exactly famous yet, but word is spreading. There's a pirate in these waters who doesn't just rob ships, he terrifies them. There's something about your presence, your strange sense of humor, your tendency to shout poetry mid-battle. You once stood shirtless at the bow during a storm, laughing and yelling quotes from the Book of Revelation. Your crew thought you'd snapped. Maybe you had. But they followed you anyway, because a captain who laughs at lightning might be the only one crazy enough to keep them alive. One quirky little detail. You're weirdly good at knots. Like, obsessively good. You once spent 3 hours showing a cabin boy how to tie a boa knot with a double tuck and slide. No one knew what that meant. You probably made it up, but you made him do it anyway, over and over, in the middle of a hurricane. And yes, the beard thing, absolutely true. You twist fuses into it, slow-burning hemp cords soaked in saltpeter, and light them before battle. Smoke curls around your face like a demon rising from the deep. Your eyes go wild, your voice drops an octave, and your enemies often surrender before the first shot is fired. One Spanish captain reportedly fainted just from seeing you. You're building something bigger than loot. You're crafting a reputation, the kind that lets you capture a ship just by sailing up next to it, the kind that echoes through ports and taverns and makes even seasoned sailors hesitate before setting sail. And then you start to climb. It's around this time you take control of a French slave ship and rename her the Queen Anne's Revenge. She's got more guns than you have crew to fire them, but she's fast, wide-decked, and terrifying in silhouette. She becomes your floating throne. You raise your black flag, sometimes with a skeleton toasting the devil, sometimes with a bleeding heart, and set course for the Americas. You hit the Carolinas. You start prowling the Caribbean. Spanish galleons, English merchants, Dutch sugar barges. No one's safe. You're not just stealing treasure. You're disrupting colonial economies, choking trade routes, turning maritime insurance into a nightmare. And with every raid, your name grows heavier. Blackbeard, still not quite tired yet? Good, because here's a fun twist. You start implementing rules, like actual bylaws. Pirate democracy is real, and you're weirdly into it. Equal shares for the crew, votes on big decisions, no gambling below decks. Some historians argue whether you really believed in fairness or just used the appearance of it to keep mutiny at bay. Either way, your crew respects you, or fears you, possibly both. And yet, in quiet moments, maybe when the moon is full and your ship rocks gently at anchor, you feel something creeping in. Not guilt exactly, just weariness. You've seen too many bullet wounds, too many betrayals, too many friends bleeding out on sandbars while you count barrels of molasses. You start thinking just a little about what's next. Can you keep this up forever? How many more storms can your body take? How many more port officials can you bribe before someone puts a dagger in your ribs during dinner? You hear rumors. The British Crown is offering pardons to pirates willing to hang up their cutlasses. Some laugh at the idea. You don't. Not out loud. But it sticks with you. Because beneath the blood and fire and beard full of burning rope, you're still just Edward. You like books, you enjoy music, and this is the weirdest part. You've always wondered what it'd be like to grow your own food. Not steal it, not burn the granary down and laugh while the locals scatter, but actually plant something, water it, and wait. And you shake the thought off, of course, you're Blackbeard. You're supposed to want to die in a blaze of glory, right? Right? You don't become Blackbeard overnight. No, you have to earn that kind of reputation, one stolen sail at a time. It starts quietly, You're still sailing under other captains, picking up the tricks of the trade. You've got a keen eye, a quick draw, and a wicked sense of what terrifies people. And you're not just about brute force. You study the fear. You notice that it's not the guy waving a sword around who gets results. It's the one who stands still, silent, staring. The one whose crew goes quiet when he walks past. The one who doesn't have to raise his voice because everyone's already listening. That's the vibe you cultivate. And then one day, off the coast of the Caribbean, it happens. The crew captures a French merchant vessel, fat with cocoa, wine, and some very underpaid sailors. The ship isn't much to look at yet, but in your mind you see her transformed. Sleek, black, fast, armed with more cannon than God. And you claim her for yourself. The men cheer because they know what it means. You're not someone's right hand anymore. You're the captain now. And so, a new name begins to rise. One not tied to your murky past or whatever your birth certificate might have said. You choose something simple, brutal, symbolic, Blackbeard. It fits like a storm cloud. No first name, no country, no backstory. Just a shape in the fog, a myth wrapped in charcoal and smoke. Of course, it helps that you actually have a beard worthy of the name. Thick, tangled, dark as night. You start grooming it like it's your first mate. You braid it. You tie in ribbons. You weave in slow-burning fuses and light them just before battle so the smoke curls around your face like a chimney from hell. Your eyes shine through the haze, and suddenly, your enemies aren't just facing a pirate. They're staring into the abyss. You know what you're doing. Fear is your most reliable weapon, and it doesn't need reloading. One Royal Navy officer later described you as a tall man with a very black beard, which he wore up to his eyes. He said you looked like a frightful meteor, which sounds cool until you realize that meteors, historically, tend to crash and burn. Still, you're not just a costume. Underneath the pyrotechnics, you're a savvy tactician. You know how to position your ship to block escape routes. You know how to negotiate ransoms, when to bluff, and when to fire warning shots across the bow. You're not reckless, you just look like you are. It's performance, and it works. You even start picking up some quirks, like never going into battle without 2 pistols, 3 knives, and enough gunpowder strapped to your chest to technically qualify as a firework display. You like to pace the deck during combat, muttering to yourself or to no one at all. Once, a crewmate caught you calmly reciting Psalm 23 during a boarding. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right before you ran a man through with a cutlass. Legend builds quickly in a world where most people never meet a pirate. They only hear stories about them. And your stories? They spread like moldy bread in a hot galley, fast, stinky, and impossible to ignore. In Port Royal, mothers start using your name to scare their kids into behaving. Eat your plantains or Blackbeard will come for you. In Boston, a dockhand claims he saw your ship vanish into thin air. In Nassau, someone insists you once survived being shot in the head twice and just shook it off like a mosquito bite. Historians still argue whether these tales were wild exaggerations or clever marketing. The truth? A little of both. You lean into madness because it gives you a shield. People don't mess with what they can't predict. But your rise isn't all smoke and bravado. You begin forging alliances, too. Loose, slippery things based more on fear than friendship, but useful all the same. One key figure is Benjamin Hornigold, a notorious pirate who teaches you a lot about plundering, surviving, and occasionally making deals with colonial governors when the heat gets too high. Under Hornigold, you fine-tune your pirate resume. By the time you strike out fully on your own, you've seen how real power moves through the Atlantic like a current. Invisible, but strong enough to drag down a fleet. You also start choosing your targets carefully. You're not chasing every ship that floats by. You're hunting for plump prizes. Spanish treasure galleons, British merchant fleets, sugar ships stuffed to the gunnels. You seize a sloop carrying silk and decide to gift the entire cargo to your quartermaster, just because. Your crew loves you for that. You're unpredictable, generous, terrifying, exactly the kind of lunatic they want at the helm. And the Queen Anne's revenge? She's no longer just a ship. She's an icon. You've outfitted her with 40 guns. She's faster than most Navy frigates, and from a distance, she looks like a floating forest of black sails and doom. She cuts through the water like a knife through tar. At one point, you blockade the entire port of Charleston, South Carolina. Just because. You trap multiple ships in the harbor, take prominent citizens hostage, and demand a ransom. Not in gold, but in medicine. Yep, you request chests of mercury and quinine. Historians still debate whether this was for your own crew's health, or if you were quietly suffering from syphilis yourself. The records are suspiciously quiet on that front, but it's that kind of move, grandiose, theatrical, inconvenient to entire cities, that makes your legend balloon. You don't just rob ships, you rearrange trade routes, you make governors sweat through their wigs, and yet, the noose is always tightening. Colonial powers are getting nervous. You're not just a nuisance anymore, you're an international problem. The British Crown doesn't like that you've made the American colonies look like pirate playgrounds. Local governors start grumbling. Royal Navy ships start prowling with a little more intent. You begin hearing whispers, bounties on your head, secret plans, letters sent across the Atlantic requesting permission to eliminate you. Still, you shrug it off. You're Blackbeard. In fact, you start getting even weirder. You hold elaborate councils with other pirate captains, part war council, part floating rum-soaked rave. You hold mock trials on deck just for fun. You once marooned your own crew for a week, then picked them back up like it was a game of tag. There's even a story, possibly exaggerated, that you once shot your own first mate in the knee just to remind the crew that you could. It's a leadership style, sure. Not one you'd recommend for corporate team building, but effective on the high seas. And then there's your code. Every pirate has one. Yours includes some classics. Lights out by 8 unless pillaging. No gambling over powder barrels. Equal shares. Except the captain gets a little more. Anyone caught stealing gets marooned, whipped, or worse, forced to scrub the latrine bucket with their own sock. Okay, maybe that last one is more of a threat than an actual rule, but it gets the point across. Your charisma is part of your arsenal. You don't rule with fear alone. You tell stories, you share rum, you laugh louder than anyone. You dance around fires at night like a man possessed. Your men aren't just loyal, they're spellbound. They follow you into hopeless fights, row across reefs for you, leap into enemy ships with you. They believe you can't die, and maybe, sometimes, you believe it too. But deep down, you know that all legends have a clock ticking beneath them. You hear it when the wind dies down. You see it in the eyes of your youngest crewmen, kids who used to admire you but now look nervous every time you talk about raiding another ship. The glory's fading a little. The gunpowder is damp, the food's gone moldy again, and the ocean, it doesn't feel like home anymore. Not always. One night, you're pacing the deck while everyone else is asleep, the moon casting silver lines across the water. You pause, rest a hand on the rail, and whisper, not to God, not to your men, but maybe just to yourself. How long does this go on? The sea doesn't answer, but you know what's coming. And it's not a storm, it's something stranger, a choice. You spot her on the horizon just after dawn. Long hull, tall masts, moving like she owns the ocean. A French merchant vessel, probably full of goods or human cargo. Either way, she's big, bigger than most ships you've taken, and you feel it in your bones. This one will matter. You order a full sail. The crew leaps into motion, hauling lines, adjusting the rigging. The wind catches, and you feel your ship surge forward beneath your boots. The ocean opens up like a racetrack. The chase is on. It's not a long fight. The French ship doesn't put up much resistance. Maybe the crew knows better. Maybe they see the smoke in your beard and the gunpowder across your chest. Maybe they've heard. You board her with barely a scratch on your side. She's called La Concorde, a former French slaver making runs from West Africa to the Caribbean, stacked with men, muskets, and misery. The ship itself is in decent shape. Large hull, 3 masts, plenty of cargo space, and the bones of something magnificent. You look around her deck, and immediately the vision hits. This will be more than a ship. This will be your name in wood and cannon. The first thing you do is strip her down. Throw out the old flags, repaint the sides, refit the cannons. You gut her slave decks and reinforce the gun ports. You don't care what she was used for before. That past is erased the second you step aboard. From this day forward, she's the Queen Anne's Revenge. You name her for the fallen Queen of England, the one whose war helped make you the man you are. After the War of the Spanish Succession, thousands of privateers like you found themselves jobless, adrift, and angry. The name is a joke, a threat, a nod to power gone rotten. Historians still argue whether you were making a political statement or just liked how it sounded. Either way, Queen Anne's Revenge becomes more than a flagship. She becomes an empire on the waves. You take her to Nassau first, the pirate capital of the Bahamas, your unofficial headquarters. The place is half tavern, half jungle, with enough shady deals happening at any given hour to qualify as its own government. Everyone knows your name there. And now everyone sees your ship. 40 guns, a reinforced hull, dark sails that blot out the sun. She's a city unto herself. You recruit more crew, some seasoned sailors, some reckless boys, some escaped slaves who want to burn the world that enslaved them. You don't ask many questions. If they can climb rigging, load cannon, and handle a blade, they're welcome. You operate under your own code, a mix of rules, rumors, and weird superstitions. No one eats bananas on board, bad luck. No whistling at night, it summons the storm. And never, ever say the word drowned. You say, he went quiet instead. You carve out hammocks in the hold, tuck away stolen wine barrels, stash crates of gunpowder where you hope they won't blow the whole thing sky high. You hang lanterns from the masts to spook enemy ships at night and paint fake gun ports on the hull to make her look even more terrifying. And when you set sail again, it feels different. You're not a raider anymore. You're a force of nature. Other pirates follow in your wake, smaller sloops and brigs sailing like remoras beside a shark. You're not just raiding, you're blockading entire ports, staging full-on naval standoffs. You move up and down the American coast like a thunderstorm, landing in places like St. Kitts, Antigua, and eventually the Carolinas. And the Queen Anne's Revenge? She carries the message. Imagine being a merchant sailor then. You're out on the water hoping for a quiet voyage when suddenly black sails crest the horizon. You squint. The wind shifts. The shape grows larger. You hear cannonballs drop into place. And then Smoke begins to curl from the rigging. Blackbeard, you probably won't survive this. Even ships that surrender immediately aren't spared the theatrics. You'll board with smoke trailing from your beard, pistols strapped across your chest like medals. You don't even raise your voice. Just tilt your head, peer at the captain, and smile. Most men offer their cargo before you say a word. You treat the Queen Anne's Revenge like a floating theater. Before boarding, you play music on deck, drums, pipes, fiddles. You want the victims to hear you coming. You once ordered your crew to fire blanks from every cannon just to cause confusion before a raid. The ship groaned like a sea monster. And of course, there's your collection of flags. You don't just fly the Jolly Roger. You have your own design, a horned skeleton stabbing a heart, hoisting a goblet as if to say, "Cheers, hope you brought a will." Historians still debate if this was actually your flag or something later pirates invented, but you like it, so you roll with it. Every part of the ship reflects your personality, bold, unpredictable, theatrical. Even the figurehead at the bow is repainted in tar with red glass eyes that catch the sunlight like a demon's wink. But a ship like this, she's hungry. She needs a lot. Men, money, repairs, powder, food. And every time she sails, you're gambling. The bigger the ship, the louder the splash. The louder the splash, the more eyes turn toward you. Soon, your name starts appearing in letters to London. Governors write reports. Merchants send pleas. One British captain even claims he saw your ship vanish into a fog bank and reappear on the other side of him. Another insists you summoned a sea serpent. Obviously nonsense, but you don't mind. Let them talk. Let them imagine. The more impossible you seem, the safer you are. Still, you know the Queen Anne's Revenge can't last forever. She's too large, too visible, a flaming sword across the map. But for now, you lean into it. You take her to the Carolinas, anchoring off the Outer Banks, a treacherous coastline where ships run aground like drunkards. You start hiding her in inlets, shallow sounds, places where Royal Navy vessels can't follow. There you begin forming plans, not just for your next raid, but maybe, just maybe, for a future on land. You won't say it out loud yet. Not to the crew, not even to yourself, but something in you is shifting. The sea is your kingdom, yes, but kingdoms collapse. And when they do, the smart rulers already have a house in the countryside. One evening, standing on the deck of the Queen Anne's Revenge, you watch the sun bleed over the horizon. The wind smells of pine and smoke from a village inland. You lean on the railing, pistol at your side, boots wet with salt. And for the first time in years, you wonder what it would feel like to sleep in a bed that doesn't move. Your ship glides into the waters off Charleston like a shadow that forgot to leave at sundown. You don't dock. You don't announce yourself. You just anchor right at the harbor mouth and let your presence speak louder than cannon fire. This isn't just a raid. It's a blockade. A message. A performance, honestly. You've brought the Queen Anne's Revenge and a small fleet of pirates. 4 ships total. Nearly 300 men. The city wakes up to the sound of nothing moving in or out. The port is jammed. Merchants panic. Wealthy families peer through lace curtains, whispering about a name they hoped was just legend. Blackbeard, you've got a problem, though. It's not gold you're after this time. It's medicine. One of your crew is sick, really sick. Fevers, bleeding gums, weird rashes. You suspect scurvy, maybe worse. And when a pirate's desperate, things get poetic. So you decide, fine, you'll take care of your man. How? by holding the entire city of Charleston hostage until someone delivers a nice basket of apothecary goods. And people think pirates aren't dramatic. You start by capturing ships, every single one that tries to enter or leave Charleston's harbor. Over the next few days, you take something like 9 merchant vessels. You don't kill anyone yet, but you make a spectacle of it. You put captured passengers, some of them high-ranking citizens, under close watch on your ships. The city starts to panic. They know you've got the guns to burn Charleston to the sand. They know your name means fire, smoke, and maybe even worse things that people whisper about, but don't actually want to see proven true. The governor's options are limited. No Royal Navy ships are close enough to help. No standing army worth mentioning. And you're sitting out there, just offshore, smiling from the deck of a black-sailed monster like you've already won. And you basically have. Here's the genius part. You don't attack. You just wait. That's what makes it terrifying. You let them imagine all the ways you could attack. Days pass. The city falls into a spiral of rumor and fear. Someone says you've kidnapped a judge's daughter. Someone else claims you're building floating gallows. A few swear you've cursed the entire coast. Historians still argue whether you truly intended to burn Charleston or if this was just a high-stakes shakedown. Either way, the effect is the same. You finally send a message to the governor. It's simple. Send a chest of medicine or watch the harbor rot. The medicine must include mercury, opiates, and various herbs, everything from fever tonics to powdered rhubarb. Some say you had syphilis aboard. Others think one of your men was bitten by something on an island. Still others believe it was your own private stash you were trying to restock. Whatever the truth, the city agrees. They send out a small boat with a heavy chest. One local official even rows it himself, pale-faced and sweating. He looks up at your ship like it's not real, like maybe if he stares long enough it'll dissolve into fog. You accept the ransom, politely even, and you let the hostages go. Everyone expected a bloodbath. You gave them medicine. Then, just like that, you vanish. No warning, no encore. Your ships slip out to sea, leaving Charleston blinking in the sunlight like someone who just escaped a dream they're too scared to retell. Back on the Queen Anne's Revenge, your crew is celebrating. Not just because you got what you needed, but because of how you got it. Without firing a single cannon, you proved something. You don't need to kill to control. Fear does the heavy lifting. Still, you know this stunt will echo. You've crossed a line. Not with the people of Charleston, they're just terrified civilians, but with the Crown. British officials are fuming. They don't like that one rogue captain can humiliate them publicly. You've made yourself into a symbol, and symbols must be crushed. So, you head north, coasting along the Carolinas. The Queen Anne's Revenge groans under the weight of loot, prisoners, and reputation. She's still your pride and joy, but she's sluggish now. Some rigging's loose. The crew's grown enormous. The ship's almost too good for piracy. It draws attention like a cannon shot in a monastery. You try to keep things moving. You raid a few smaller ports. You swap some loot for food. You keep the men entertained with drink, dice, and a strange little violinist from Tortuga who only knows 3 songs but plays them with terrifying intensity. But you're also looking for something. A place to disappear for a while. You sail past the Outer Banks, those shifting islands off North Carolina, all shoals and secrets. The locals call them the graveyard of the Atlantic. Over 5,000 ships have wrecked there over the centuries. It's perfect. You find a spot called Beaufort Inlet. Narrow, shallow, hard to navigate, especially if you're piloting a 40-gun beast like the Queen Anne's Revenge. You lower anchor. You send men ashore. You start whispering. Because here's the other thing you've decided. It might be time to get out of this life. Not yet, but soon. Maybe. You're thinking about a pardon. The British Crown is offering them now. Letters of clemency, they're called. If you turn yourself in before they catch you, you get to walk away free. Not everyone qualifies, but they're especially targeting pirates who want to return to honest living, whatever that means. Historians still debate whether you genuinely intended to take the pardon or whether this was part of a larger trick. But what's clear is this. You start making moves. You talk to local officials. You get messages sent to Governor Charles Eden in North Carolina, one of the more flexible governors in the colonies. Word is, Eden's willing to look the other way if you grease the right palms. And then, in a move that stuns your crew, you run the Queen Anne's Revenge aground. Hard. Some think it was an accident. Others say you did it on purpose, that the ship was too big, too hot, and you needed a way to shed it, a way to escape without a mutiny. It's easier to start over if your symbol sinks. You leave her stuck on the sandbar, sails flapping like wounded wings. You rescue what you can, guns, maps, rum, loot, and you abandon the rest to the sea. Some of your men are furious. Others understand. Most are just drunk, but all of them know this is the end of something. The Queen Anne's Revenge, your floating theater of fear, sits half submerged, her bones becoming part of the coast. Fishermen pass her every morning, crossing themselves. Locals avoid the beach nearby. They say she groans at night, and sometimes smoke still rises from the wreck. You, meanwhile, disappear inland. Not far, just enough to be out of sight. Maybe to lay low, maybe to plan something new. You've still got weapons, still got loyal men, and, perhaps most importantly, you've still got the mind of a showman, but the curtains have closed on Act 1, and somewhere out there in the Carolina woods, Act 2 is waiting. You step off the longboat onto the marshy sand like it's a stage, and you've just changed costumes. No more smoke, no more roaring cannons or fire in your beard. Now, it's boots in mud and the squelch of North Carolina summer grass brushing your knees. The Queen Anne's Revenge is behind you, stuck like a swallowed lie in the inlet's shallow gut. You don't look back. Okay, maybe once, but the ship's done. Whether you ran her aground on purpose or she just didn't obey your last command, it's over. She had her final act, and now she'll vanish slowly into the salt and time. So what do you do when the world thinks you're a monster and the sea no longer carries your name like thunder? You walk inland, you breathe deep, you find out how the land smells, wet pine, sticky honeysuckle, and that weird sharp sting of brine that never quite leaves your clothes. You start visiting taverns again, but this time not to recruit pirates. You talk to farmers, to tavern owners, to officials, quietly through a friend or a cousin of a cousin. You aren't Blackbeard anymore, not in public. You're Edward Teach or Edward Thatch. The spelling doesn't matter much out here. What matters is the smile, the coin in your palm, and the way people start calling you Sir without realizing why. Your old crew scatters in all directions. Some head south, looking for another captain. Some fade into the countryside, posing as fishermen or coopers. A few get arrested. 2 go straight back to pirating and die a week later in a dumb fight over a stolen chicken. You start sending messages to Governor Charles Eden. Eden's not exactly a hero. He's a crown appointee with a fondness for slow paperwork and faster bribes. He wants peace in the colony, yes, but mostly he wants quiet, which means no Royal Navy ships stomping through his harbors asking questions. He hears you're interested in a pardon. He also hears you've still got treasure hidden somewhere. And so, one afternoon, a quiet deal gets arranged. You meet in a coastal settlement, maybe Bath or Ocracoke. No one takes notes. There's a handshake, some shared brandy, and Eden offers you what might be the single weirdest twist in pirate history. A clean slate. You accept. You get a royal pardon. An official letter saying the past is forgiven. You're now a free man, protected by British law, a man of peace. There's just one catch. You can't commit piracy again? Sure, totally. Of course, that's definitely not something you'll do. You settle in Bath, a sleepy little town clinging to the edge of the Pamlico River. It's barely 100 people, a few cabins, a church, some goats wandering freely like they own the place. It's quiet, almost too quiet. But that's what you need right now. And here's where things get really strange. You start farming. You buy land. Real, actual land. You build a small house, or take one over from someone you paid off. You plant beans, maybe corn. People say you even grew melons. You, Blackbeard, the fire-bearded terror of the Atlantic, grow melons. Historians still argue whether you truly intended to retire here or if you were just playing another long con. But you walk the town like a man who belongs. You wear linen instead of blood-soaked velvet. You let your beard grow, sure, but not to frighten anyone. It's just how you look now. People get used to you. They nod to you at the market. Their kids stare at you in awe. You laugh with the blacksmith. You help carry a fallen tree after a storm. One day, you even walk into the tiny church on Sunday. Nobody breathes until you walk back out again. And yet, pirates still come by, not openly, not in broad daylight, but you get visitors, ragged sailors with sunburned necks and sea salt in their hair. They bring news. Some want advice, some want protection. A few bring gifts, a barrel of rum, a pouch of Spanish silver, a monkey that won't stop screeching. You don't turn them away. But you also don't go back to sea. Not yet. Instead, you focus on something you've never had before. Power. Not the kind that comes from cannons. The kind that comes from knowing people owe you favors. That they look the other way when they see your door cracked open at midnight. That the governor of the colony sends you holiday greetings. Oh, and then there's Tobias Knight. Knight is the colony's secretary. A thin man with soft fingers and a fondness for cigars. He's Governor Eden's right hand, and you, somehow, become very good friends with him. Some say you pay him off. Others say you have dirt on him. A few whisper that Knight actually likes you. He thinks you're funny. Whatever the reason, Tobias Knight starts smoothing the path for you. Land purchases get easier. Imports arrive faster. And if you, say, take a small sloop out to sea now and then, just for fishing, of course, nobody asks too many questions. Then something odd happens. A small ship gets raided off the coast. No survivors, no clear evidence. But people notice that the raiders left no trace, no blood, no bodies, just vanished cargo. Another week passes. Another ship disappears. The governor pretends to investigate, but you don't see much panic. Why? Because people suspect it's you, but they can't prove it. And if it is you, well, they sort of like you now. You're one of them, a local. And besides, the ships being hit aren't from Bath. They're outsiders, bigwigs, royal merchants, slave traders, people the town doesn't mind seeing lose a little profit. Still, the pressure builds. Letters arrive from Virginia demanding to know if pirates are being harbored in North Carolina. One of the captured merchant captains insists Blackbeard is active again, Charles Eden denies everything. Tobias Knight smiles. You host a small dinner party at your house, serve some roast pig, and play cards with a preacher. One night, a neighbor swears he sees you burying something behind your house. Another says you've been meeting strangers in the woods. A woman claims your beard moves on its own when you talk. It's unclear if she means this literally. You become folklore while still alive. A man who owns land, talks smoothly, and maybe, just maybe, still drinks blood at midnight. Historians still argue whether you resumed piracy during this period or just let people think you did. But what's certain is that the coast isn't calm, and other governors are getting nervous, especially the one in Virginia, because if he starts getting letters from London about pirates in his neighborhood, his job could be on the line. He starts making plans, quiet ones, the kind that involves money and swords, and a man named Maynard. But that part's coming later. For now, you walk your small stretch of farmland. You listen to crickets chirp as the sun drips behind the trees like spilled honey. You nod at passing farmers. You sharpen a cutlass out of habit. And sometimes, when the night wind shifts just right and smells like gunpowder, you smile. Because you know you've done what no pirate ever really gets to do. You've vanished, or so they think. Even in the sleepiest bath, you can't hide forever. You try, you honestly do. You walk slowly, tip your hat, offer polite nods at the church gate. You trade salted fish for apples, help mend a neighbor's roof, and once even nurse a dog back to health after it limped into your yard with a splinter the size of a dagger in its paw. But legends are stubborn, and you, dear friend, have become one. There's something about the way the wind changes when you step out your door. The beard, still unruly. The eyes, too calm. The hands, always calloused, but not from farming, not really. You've got the look of someone who's seen fire swallow a ship and smiled through the smoke. And Bath sees it, even if they won't say it out loud. They talk behind doors, whispers by lamplight. The children make up games about you. One involves sneaking through the woods, pretending to find your hidden treasure. Another is a dare. Knock 3 times on your door at dusk, then run like the devil's chasing you. The adults are subtler, but not by much. A neighbor stops by with eggs and stays too long trying to peek inside your pantry. A preacher delivers an extra long sermon on honesty and forgiveness, all while glancing at your pew with a tight jaw. The local magistrate accidentally drops by to chat about taxes, about weather, about that one sloop spotted sailing into your cove last Thursday. You answer with shrugs, smiles, and vague nods. Nothing they can hang you with, but they know, or at least they think they do. And soon the rumors start to bloom like mold in a cellar. Rumor 1, you have treasure buried in 7 spots across Bath County. Each one is guarded by a curse, a coded map, and a ghost. Rumor 2, you host pirates every full moon. They arrive barefoot, masked, and carrying gifts. One man swears he saw a box full of carved Spanish bone dice. Rumor 3, you married a local girl. Some say she's your 13th wife. Others say she's a witch. A few claim she controls you, not the other way around. Rumor 4, you keep a chest under your bed. If anyone tries to open it, they die within a week. That one gets repeated so much that someone tries to sneak into your home while you're away. You return early. They don't try again. And then there's the strangest rumor of all, that you've changed. That you're trying, really trying, to live clean, to plant things, raise goats, maybe even father a few quiet children. That Blackbeard the demon has faded, and Edward the man has taken root. It's almost sweet, but it's also deeply unsettling. because it's hard to know whether the change is real or just another disguise. The townsfolk don't know. You probably don't even know. What you do know is that your past has a long shadow, and that shadow keeps reaching. Sloops coming quietly at night, no flags, no gunfire, just a soft dip of oars, a creak of wood. They anchor just out of view, unload barrels, take on fresh water, and vanish by dawn. Sometimes you're seen talking to the captains. Once, a boy claims he saw you hand someone a scroll wrapped in waxed leather. The boy says the other man called you captain and saluted. The boy also says he saw a black cat run backward up a tree that night, so maybe take that one with a pinch of salt. Still, the governor hears things. Not Eden, no, he's practically family by now. But the others, the ones in Virginia, in Charleston, they send letters, request investigations, propose patrols. Governor Eden does not much. He's in no hurry to poke the wasp nest. He claims there's no evidence, that you're retired, that maybe, just maybe, the pirates near Bath are acting on their own without your say-so. Historians still argue whether Eden truly believed that or just didn't want to deal with the fallout. Meanwhile, Tobias Knight, remember him? Eden's right hand, soft-fingered and smirking, has a new idea. He draws up paperwork, land deeds, shipping manifests, gifts in your name, passed quietly to friendly officials. The records get fuzzy right around here. Some suggest Knight was laundering money through you, using your old network to offload stolen goods, then selling them as legitimate cargo through colonial channels. Others believe it was all above board. Well, mostly. Either way, your name starts appearing in new places, not as a pirate, as a landowner, a merchant, a man of influence. You host dinners, smoke pipes with visiting traders, offer guarded advice about shipping lanes and weather patterns. Maybe mention that certain areas are best avoided. Terrible reefs, you warn, sipping rum. You never mention that you stationed lookouts there last summer. Still, you're not invincible. Once, a skiff pulls too close and you're spotted arguing with a man in a foreign tongue, Spanish or Portuguese, perhaps. The observer says you looked angry, gesturing wildly. The other man left in a hurry. Another time, a drunken sailor in the tavern yells your name, your real name, and demands payment for an old debt. You don't blink. You just stand slowly and ask him to repeat himself. He doesn't. He stumbles out into the fog and is never seen again. People get nervous. They like you, kind of, or they're at least used to you. But they know there's a spark under the soil, and if the wind shifts too suddenly, it could flare into fire again. And let's not forget the other pirates. Some aren't happy with your retirement. They think you've sold out, gone soft, turned your back on the code. One or two try to challenge you. They don't last long. And word gets around. He may be on land, but he's still Blackbeard. You don't seek revenge. You don't raise your voice. You just are. A presence. A reminder. And somehow, all of this only makes the stories grow. Now they say you drink rum laced with snake venom, that you once talked a bear into leaving your orchard, that your beard can catch bullets. Children whisper that your house walks at night, its shutters glowing faint red. One kid insists he heard singing in a language no one knows, coming from your chimney. You laugh when you hear that one, but you don't deny it. One day, a stranger arrives, not a pirate, not a neighbor, a gentleman, coat clean, shoes polished, eyes sharp. He asks around, doesn't give a name, just says he's interested in coastal trade. He doesn't visit you directly, but you see him, you feel him. The way his gaze lingers too long on your garden gate, the way his notebook disappears the moment he sees you watching. He's not the first, but he feels different, focused. And then, for the first time in months, you can't sleep. You lie awake listening to the frogs, the wind, the slow ticking of your own heartbeat. You stare at the ceiling and wonder, was this ever going to work? Could you really plant enough beans to erase the lives you've taken? Could you ever outrun a shadow big enough to swallow a fleet? The answer sits silent in the dark beside you, a cutlass, polished and ready, just in case. You wake up one morning to a goose screaming. Not the usual farmyard honk. This one is sharp, panicked, something between a squeal and a war cry. You rush out barefoot, expecting a fox, maybe a snake. Instead, it's just the neighbor's boy, barefoot himself, running up the path shouting, "They're coming from Virginia!" You squint into the sun. He's out of breath, red-faced, waving a rolled-up broadsheet like it's on fire. It isn't, but the words printed on it might as well be. Governor Spotswood declares war on pirates. No colony shall shelter criminals. You sigh. You were hoping for at least another season of peace. Alexander Spotswood, governor of Virginia, has had it. Had it with piracy, had it with smugglers slipping through his coast. Had it, most of all, with North Carolina's maddening calm, its suspicious silence, its conveniently blind officials, its lush, lazy waterways where pirates seem to retire fat and happy. Historians still argue whether Spotswood's crusade was about law, ego, or cold, hard trade competition. You suspect it was all three. Let's paint the picture. 1718, late summer. Virginia is trying to clean the house. Charleston has begun hanging pirates again, publicly, with nooses that creak in the coastal wind. Trade companies are getting louder, investors are nervous, and Spotswood sees an opportunity. Wipe out the last of the freebooters, show London who really runs the coast, and maybe earn himself a shiny title in the process. But there's a problem. Most of the pirates worth chasing aren't in Virginia anymore. They're down south, in Carolina. And that, technically, is not Spotswood's business. Technically. But this is a man who once installed iron stoves across his colony just to force settlers to smelt their own iron, no matter how much they complained about the cost. He isn't exactly known for subtlety, so Spotswood draws a line in the sand. Then he erases the line and walks across it in steel-heeled boots. The way he sees it, the Carolinas have become pirate-friendly. Too friendly, a haven for rogues, and worst of all, they're making money off it. He's not wrong. Your little kingdom in Bath, the shady deals, the quiet shipments, it's all part of the problem as far as he's concerned. You might have retired, but your legend gives other pirates hope. It makes them think they can settle down, keep the loot, and start fresh. That won't do. So Spotswood declares you enemy number one, but not officially. Oh no, he's cleverer than that. Because you've been granted a royal pardon, and he knows Eden would throw a fit if he just invaded Bath. So instead, he works in the shadows. First, he sends letters to England, to merchants, to governors, letters full of righteous anger and cleverly worded complaints. He paints you as a liar who broke your pardon, a secret ringleader hiding behind the soft skirts of a corrupt colony. He says he has witnesses. He doesn't name them. He says you've resumed illegal activities. He offers no proof. But the tone is enough. Next, he gathers men. Not soldiers, not yet. That would be illegal. He calls in the Royal Navy, specifically a captain named Robert Maynard. Now, Maynard's a tough one. Young, sharp, not much to talk about. He's not a pirate hunter by trade. more of a courier and customs enforcer, but he's loyal, and more importantly, he doesn't ask many questions. Spotswood equips him with 2 sloops, the HMS Jane and Ranger, not big ships, but fast, and crewed with hardened men, not the sort who read much poetry. Maynard's orders? Quiet, unofficial. Track Blackbeard. Find him, take him down, alive if possible, but death is fine too. Meanwhile, back in Bath, you hear things? Not just from the neighbor's kid. You've got ears in many places. The merchant who whispers that Maynard has been seen provisioning in the James River. The midwife whose cousin works in the Norfolk docks. The fisherman who saw a Royal Navy sloop hugging the horizon at dawn. No flag, no lanterns. You know something's coming. You just don't know when. So you prepare. Quietly. You mend your boat. Sharpen your cutlass. Tell your men, the few still loyal, to stay close. You stop drinking quite so much at night. There's something in the air, not just tension, finality, a thick kind of silence before a storm. You think about leaving, just disappearing into the sea one last time, slipping past the teeth of Virginia like smoke through trees. But you don't. Not yet. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's stubbornness. Or maybe it's because, in a twisted way, part of you has been waiting for this. Because you've played at farmer, you've worn the mask, and now someone's calling your bluff. Still, you don't want to die. Not yet. Not like this. So you try one last thing. You write a letter to Eden. Not begging, no, just reminding. You mention your pardon, your peaceful life, how you've kept quiet, avoided conflict. You even refer to yourself in the third person, Captain Edward Teach, formerly known as Blackbeard. Like a man speaking at his own funeral, you ask for protection. Eden responds, sort of. He stalls. Issues a vague statement to Virginia that any action against a pardoned man within Carolina borders would be seen as unlawful. But he doesn't send soldiers. He doesn't send help. He just waits. And you realize something. Even Eden's starting to sweat. Because if Virginia succeeds, if Maynard kills you and walks away with proof of piracy, it makes the whole North Carolina government look complicit, which, of course, they are, which, of course, includes Eden. So your death might be the cleanest solution for everyone. You're no longer a political shield, you're a liability. And suddenly it hits you. This is the end of the game. No more letters, no more dinners, no more pretending. If they come, it's you versus them. And only one of you walks away. You spend the next few days walking your land like it's the last time. The morning dew clings to your boots. The bees buzz louder than usual. Even the creek, that slow trickle behind your garden, seems to whisper something new, a warning in the way it hesitates around stones. You rake, you feed the goats, you tie the loose shutter that always bangs in the wind, but your hands don't feel like they're really part of your body anymore. They're too calm. That's the thing. It's all too calm. The air is thick with it. There's a moment, just a moment, where you start to believe you imagined it all. The ships, the letters, the Navy moved like ghosts across the coast. Maybe Spotswood just wanted to scare you. Maybe he thinks you're already too old, too soft to bother with. But then you notice the bees. You've always been fond of them. There's something honest about bees. They work, they sting, they die. No lies, no showmanship. You keep 4 hives behind the vegetable patch, far enough from the house that they stay quiet, but close enough to hear if something goes wrong. And one morning, something was wrong. They're still. Too still. Not a hum, not a flap. Just silence. as if the whole colony had suddenly stopped mid-flight to listen. You lean in, no smoke, no wind, no invaders, but they know. Something's coming. It gives you a chill, the kind that runs down your back and stays there. You try not to overthink it. Maybe they're just tired. Maybe it's the weather. But you don't believe that. Your gut knows better. So you start packing. Not everything. Just a few things. The silver coins in the back of the bread box, the pistol under the floorboards, that compass you swore you lost last year, hidden inside a sack of old oats. Your men, what's left of them, notice the shift. You haven't kept a full crew in months, but there are a handful of loyal ones still around. Israel hands, limping but quick. Caesar, sharp-eyed and quiet. 3 more whose names don't really matter anymore, because deep down, you know how this ends. They ask if you're planning something. You lie. You say you just want to sail out for supplies. They don't press. You spend a little more time with the goats than usual. You hated them at first. Stupid, clunky, always trying to eat your boots. But they've grown on you. One of them, the shaggy brown one you named Admiral after your old shipmate who could never stay upright in a storm. You scratch his head. He bleats like he knows this is goodbye. Then there's Anne. Not that Anne. She left months ago, probably in Charleston by now, or maybe pretending to be someone else in New York. No, this Anne is a chicken. You found her limping one night after a raccoon broke into the coop. You patched her up, and she's been following you ever since. She sleeps on the windowsill, pecks your boots when you're late feeding her. You think about taking her with you. You don't. There's something sacred about animals that don't know war. Let them stay. The next day, you walk into Bath one last time. Not in your pirate gear, just simple clothes, brown linen, a loose coat. You nod at the blacksmith. Buy a fresh jug of cider. Smile at the widow who always insists her husband once sailed with you, though you're pretty sure he was a baker. Nobody stops you. Nobody whispers. But they know. They all know. The town has changed since you first stepped ashore with your pardon in hand and a fake smile on your face. The streets feel narrower now. The eyes on you feel heavier. There's a weight in every glance, part fear, part awe, part regret. Like watching a bear pace the edge of a trap it doesn't realize it's already in. You stop by the inn, talk to the old man who runs it. Anyone from Virginia passed through lately? You ask, sipping your cider. He shrugs. Plenty of traders, quiet types, armed. That's enough. You finish your drink. You nod. You leave. That night you sit outside your house, staring at the stars. The sky is clear. Too clear. It's the kind of night you used to live for. Perfect for slipping past blockades, for boarding slow-moving cargo ships without a sound. You almost miss it. Almost. You think about all the gold, all the blood, all the days when your name sent chills down spines from Jamaica to Boston. And then you think about the hives, still quiet, still listening. You get up and walk to the dock. Your sloop, the Adventure, rocks gently in the water. She's not much compared to the Queen Anne's Revenge, but she's yours. Light, fast, stubborn, just like you. You whisper to her. Tomorrow, then. And she creaks like she understands. Back in the house, you sharpen your cutlass for the first time in months. Not because you expect to win, but because if you're going to lose, you're going to do it on your feet. You dream of nothing that night, just salt and fire and bees swarming over the deck of a ship that shouldn't be yours anymore. When you wake, it's still dark. The stars are just fading. The horizon turns gold. You dress slowly, one boot at a time. You tie your hair back, tie it tight, you leave the pistol behind. It's not that kind of day. Instead, you carry the cutlass, a second blade on your belt, and your old flintlock tucked into the sash. Israel's already at the dock when you arrive. Caesar joins moments later, nodding once, eyes like storm glass. They say nothing. They don't need to. This isn't a mission. It's a funeral. You set sail just after dawn. The wind is soft, like a hand on your shoulder. The boat cuts across the water like she remembers how. You leave the farm behind. You don't look back. Not once. Because whatever happens next, it doesn't belong to Bath. It doesn't belong to hives or goats or chickens named Anne. It belongs to the sea, and she's calling you home. The morning mist lifts slow, like an old curtain being dragged open by tired hands. You're already on the open water, sails puffed, lines taut, the Adventure slicing south along the coast like a shark with somewhere to be. You can taste the salt rising off the waves, thicker now, sharper. Not the gentle salt of the Pamlico Sound, but the deep-brined kind that lingers after a storm. And you feel it. Something's off. The wind whispers, but it doesn't push. The birds keep their distance. Even the sun, bright and open, seems to watch you from a place of suspicion. You're used to the ocean treating you like an old friend, but today, it feels like it's deciding whether to let you through or pull you under. No one talks. Not Israel. Not Caesar. Not the 3 other men who volunteered to come, though one of them is already regretting it. He vomits over the side, then wipes his mouth and glares at the horizon like it personally offended him. You don't say anything. You remember your first time too. The plan, if you can call it that, is to anchor off Ocracoke. It's a narrow, crooked island, all sand dunes and wind-thrashed sea oats, the kind of place that looks like it's been trying to disappear for 100 years and failing just barely. You've used it before, plenty of times. It's not far from Bath, but it's isolated enough to stay quiet and close enough to the mainland for a fast escape if things go wrong. And you know it's a good hiding place. Too good. Which is why you also know that if someone were hunting you, this is where they'd look. You arrive mid-morning. The inlet yawns wide, the waves rolling in soft and white-tipped. You steer into the shallows and drop anchor in the lee of the island. The air smells like salt and seagrass, and for a moment it almost feels peaceful again. Almost. You hop ashore and stretch your legs. The sand burns under your boots. The others follow, looking around like they expect to see ghosts. Maybe they do. Because Ocracoke is haunted. Not by spirits, not by curses, by choices, and yours mostly. This is where you ran gold, where you traded stolen rum for gunpowder, where you laughed too loud and drank too long and told the sea to go ahead and try to kill you, because it already took everything else. You've buried things here, not just loot. You walk to a crooked dune and sit down, squinting into the distance, and there, barely visible on the far line of the water, is a dark shape. A ship. 2, actually. You watch them without moving. They don't fly colors. They don't raise sails high. They just drift closer, slow and silent, like wolves pretending to be logs. You don't panic, you just nod. So this is it. You head back to the Adventure. You don't shout orders. You aren't really your man. That would be a waste. Instead, you do something strange. You shave. Not all the way, just the beard. Not gone, but trimmed. Cleaned up, almost civilized. You tie black ribbons into it, the way you used to in your prime, back when your face was the last thing a dozen terrified merchant captains ever saw. You don your long coat, dark and heavy despite the heat, and belt on your cutlass with the slow ritual of a priest dressing for a funeral. Your own. You don't look in a mirror. You don't need to. Because this isn't about vanity. It's about control. If someone's going to kill you, they better know who they're dealing with, and they better remember it. Back on deck, Caesar looks at you and raises one eyebrow. Fancy. You smirk. Israel chuckles, even though his leg is throbbing again. Guess it's serious now. Aye, you say. Looks like. And then, like a stagehand pulling the rope, the wind shifts. The incoming sloops hoist sails. Closer now, much closer. No more pretending. You see the men aboard, dozens of them, hard-eyed, broad-shouldered, Navy for sure, probably out of the James River, probably sent by a certain grudge-holding governor who doesn't know how to stay in his lane. And then you see him, the captain. You don't know his name yet. Later you'll learn it's Maynard. Right now you only know him by his stance. He stands tall, hands clasped behind his back, coat fluttering, eyes scanning your sloop like he's already carved it apart in his mind. He doesn't look afraid, doesn't look cruel either, just determined. You can respect that. You nod once as if to say, fair enough. Then you step back inside the cabin for a moment, just a moment. You reach into a small wooden box near the shelf where the extra gunpowder is stored. Inside is something no one else knows about. A scrap of parchment frayed at the edges, and a locket. The parchment? Your pardon. Signed. Official. Ink slightly smudged. The locket? A gift from someone who said she'd wait for you. Spoiler, she didn't. You tuck them both inside your coat. Not because they'll help, just because they matter. Back on deck, you check the cannons. 4 of them loaded and ready, but they won't last long against warships. Still, it's something. You turn to your crew. Here's the deal, you say, voice steady. They're not here to arrest me. They're here to make a point. If you want to leave, now's your chance. Nobody moves. Israel just spits into the sea. Caesar grins. Didn't bring my good boots to run, he says. You smile. For a second, it almost feels like the old days. Almost. You grip the wheel. The wind stiffens. The enemy sloops pull into range. Still no signal, no shout, no cannon fire, just tension, thick and coiled. Like a snake waiting for your footstep. And then you speak, not loud, not to anyone, just under your breath. You say, let's give them something to remember. Because this isn't going to be a battle. This is going to be a performance. And the sea, she's your audience. The first shot tears through the morning air like thunder over glass. It comes from Maynard's lead sloop, a single cannonball that punches the sea just yards off your bow. It's a warning technically, but you're not in the mood for reading between the lines. Return fire, you say. Israel lights the fuse. Your cannon answers with a booming growl. The whole adventure shudders under the force. The ball arcs through the air and smashes into Maynard's mast. Not enough to drop it, but enough to rattle his men and shake his sails like a slap. Then everything erupts. Gunpowder smoke rolls over the deck, thick and oily. The crack of muskets rips through the haze. Your men shout and fire and reload as fast as hands can move. You can't see the enemy's eyes yet. but you can hear their boots thunder across their own deck. You know they're closing in. Your teeth grit. You steady your grip on the wheel. This isn't a ship built for war. The adventure is fast, not armored. She dances in water, but she can't take much punishment. You push her hard, swinging her wide across the channel, trying to position for another broadside. The second Navy ship is faster than expected. You see her cutting across like a knife, trying to flank your port side. You pivot the rudder hard, nearly throwing a man overboard. The wave crashes across the deck, soaking your coat, but you don't care. Israel fires again. The cannon groans. Another shot lands clean, this time in the hull. A scream follows. You don't smile, you don't celebrate, because now they're boarding. Ropes fly across the air. Hooks dig into your railing. The first wave of blue-coated Marines leap aboard, sabers drawn, eyes wide with fury or fear. You can never tell which. You draw your cutlass. Your boots thud across wet planks. And just like that, the battle shifts from cannons to blades. Steel clashes. Shouts rise. Blood spatters across the deck, slippery and black under the clouded sun. You parry the first swing that comes at you. Some young soldier with too much polish on his uniform and not enough hate in his swing. You twist, slash, and he's gone. Not dead, maybe, but gone from this fight. Caesar roars beside you, musket butt crashing down onto someone's skull. Israel fights with the frantic precision of a man who knows this is his last brawl. One leg braced, both hands on his sword. 2 Marines go down under his blade before a third stabs deep into his side. He gasps, grabs the attacker, and throws him overboard. He stays standing, barely. You don't have time to help. There's another man lunging for you. No hat, wild hair, saber high. You duck. Your cutlass rises. His mouth drops open as he falls. And still they come. Maynard hasn't stepped aboard yet. You see him on his ship's rail, calm as a statue, watching, calculating. A strategist, not a showman like you. His crew's doing his dirty work. But even you can tell he's waiting for the moment to strike. And you? You're buying time, not to escape. There's nowhere to run, but to burn your name into the ocean one last time. The second wave of Marines makes it across. One of them kicks a cannon loose. It rolls, crashing into a sailor and pinning him. The scream that follows rattles in your bones. Caesar grabs the cannon and shoves it off. The sailor's not moving. The fight's slipping. You know it. The adventure is bleeding men in splinters. But you don't slow. You don't stop. You're a shadow in the smoke, moving from foe to foe, blade catching sunlight and blood alike. You grab a pistol from a fallen man and fire, point blank into the chest of another Marine. He falls without a word, and then, finally, Maynard boards. No announcement, just quiet steps onto your deck. He draws his sword slowly, like he's unwrapping a gift. You see him, he sees you. Time thickens. You nod, he nods. And then you charge. You meet mid-deck. The world falls away. No cannon fire, no shouting, just the clang of your blades. He's good. Better than you expected. His footwork is tight, his strikes precise. You parry once, twice, duck a swing, then twist to slash back, but he's already moved. You grin. Finally, someone worth the trouble. Governor, send his regards. You rasp. Maynard doesn't answer, just swings again. You clash swords like it's a duet. Back and forth, back and forth. His coat billows, your ribbons flutter. You both move like you're dancing on a knife's edge. He catches your arm, just a graze, enough to sting. You respond by lunging low and nicking his leg. Neither of you slows. The crew fights around you, but no one dares step between. This is your stage, and this right here is the final act. You feint left, then pivot, classic pirate trick. He falls for it. You land a cut along his ribs, shallow but satisfying. He hisses, then he grins. You're not bad for a farmer, he says. You laugh, breath ragged. Tell the bees I said goodbye. And then he draws a second pistol. You freeze, too late. The shot rings out. It tears into your shoulder. You stagger. Your cutlass clatters to the deck. Everything slows. The smoke swirls. The heat drains. The waves fall silent. You drop to one knee. Not dead. Not yet. But the pain? It's different this time. It's not fire, it's ice. Cold spreading from the wound into your chest, into your hands, into your memories. Maynard steps closer. He raises his sword. You look up at him, and you smile. A little bloody, a little mad. Do it right, you whisper, because you're not afraid. Not of death, only to be forgotten. You don't fall, not yet. Your legs are jelly, your shoulder is torn, and your lungs burn with the smoke of battle, but you're still upright, still breathing, still gripping the rail of the adventure like it owes you money. Maynard stares, stunned. You were supposed to drop. He's sure of it. That shot would have put down a bull. But you're not a bull. You're Blackbeard. And dying quickly has never been your style. He moves to finish it, but you lurch forward, not fast, just deliberate. Every muscle aches, every drop of blood inside you screams, but you draw your own pistol from your belt with your left hand. It shakes, it's slippery, but it fires, and you miss it. Not by much. Enough to tear his coat, enough to make him flinch, enough to remind him this isn't over. Not yet. The crew around you doesn't know what to do. Some of your men are still fighting, desperately, hopelessly. Caesar's bleeding from the forehead, but swinging a boarding axe like he's in a tavern brawl. Israel's on the deck, half-conscious, one arm limp and twisted unnaturally, but still cursing in a low, bitter growl. A Navy sailor grabs you from behind. You elbow him in the face. Another charge. You turn to meet him, blade gone, only your fists left. He tackles you, and finally the weight is too much. Your knees hit the deck, your vision dims just a little. The fight keeps going, but it fades behind a thick veil. You're in the center of it, and yet somehow outside it too, like watching from underwater. Sound muffled, light flickering. You hear someone say, "That's him. That's Blackbeard." You want to correct them. No, that's Edward Teach. Blackbeard is the costume, the myth, the smoke and fire and shadow. But the man behind it, that's just someone who made too many choices and now has to lie in the bed he lit on fire. You cough. There's blood. It spatters on your boot. And you think, almost lazily, well, that's new. You don't see Maynard again until he's right in front of you. His face is grim, his sword is red. And when he speaks, it's not with gloating or cruelty, it's weariness. You should have surrendered. You try to speak, but it's just air. So you shake your head, slow. He nods, as if he expected that, and then he slashes. The first blow lands across your neck, deep and quick. You blink. Everything slows. You've taken worse. Maybe. You reach for him, not to attack, not to stop, just to touch, to be present. A second blow. Your world flickers again. You don't feel fear. Not now. Only heat. Then cold. Your blood spills fast, soaking the boards you've walked 100 times. Someone screams, "It's not you, it's Caesar," somewhere behind, bellowing with rage. Maynard steps back. Your body lurches forward. You fall, face down. The world tilts. Then nothing. But not nothing exactly. You're aware, somehow. As though your mind still floats while your body crumples. You smell gunpowder and pine tar. You hear the sea lapping the hull. You remember faces. Anne, the one who said she'd wait. Thatch, your first captain. Israel shouting about bad whiskey. You even remember the goats, the ones you stole. The receipts, the ones you never returned. And you laugh. In your mind, it sounds like waves breaking. Then someone lifts your head, not gently. You feel tugging. A blade. Then your head is severed cleanly from your body. It's carried by the hair. You want to say, "You didn't need to do that," but you can't. The last image your eyes ever see is your own deck, bloody, broken, and strangely peaceful now that it's quiet. Maynard hoists your head high. His men cheer. A few look sick. Caesar's gone quiet. The sea watches. Don't blink. Later, they'll examine your corpse. They'll count 5 bullet wounds and over 20 slashes. They'll say you kept fighting long after any man should have dropped. They'll marvel at your endurance, whisper legends, say you weren't human. Historians will argue whether it was adrenaline, superstition, or sheer stubbornness that kept you upright for so long. But they'll all agree on one thing. You didn't die like a man. You died like a monster refusing to vanish. They'll tie your head to the bowsprit of Maynard's sloop like a trophy. It'll swing there in the salt wind as they sail back toward Virginia. And the sailors, superstitious and tired, will refuse to look at it too long. They'll swear the eyes still move. One even claims it whispers at night. Another says it sings. Ridiculous, obviously. But then again, you were always good at leaving an impression. And so ends Blackbeard. Not in glory, not in gold, but in blood and silence. And yet, as they sail away, the water beneath the Adventure begins to churn quietly, just a bit, as if the sea hasn't had its say yet, as if it's waiting. Remember that fringe tale? The one sailors tell only after 3 drinks in a second storm? They say if you sail past Ocracoke on the right night, when the fog's thick and the moon's crooked, you'll see a figure walking on the water, tall, broad, beard tied with black ribbon, looking for his head. Still? So here's the twist, the big one. You die at Ocracoke, sure, your head swings from a sloop, your legend starts stewing in salt and hearsay, but all that fanfare, all that drama, that was Blackbeard, not Edward. Because Edward Teach had already started peeling off the costume before the Navy showed up. And no one talks about that. Not enough, anyway. You see, the last months before that final stand weren't all raids and muskets and shouting matches over rum. In fact, if someone had stopped and looked real close, squinted through the smoke and myth, they'd have seen something that looked suspiciously like retirement. Imagine that. You. Retired. Kind of. Because after Governor Eden gave you that pardon, yes, that one, the royal one, you didn't just run back to the sea, not right away. Nope. You stayed in North Carolina. Settle down, they said. And you tried. You bought, or maybe acquired, a modest little plot of land near Bath, North Carolina. Not much. Swampy, a bit buggy, but peaceful, close to the water. You couldn't quit cold turkey after all. Some reports say you even bought a small home. Nothing flashy. A wooden house with a porch, maybe a shed. You'd stand out back some days, staring at the tree line, sipping something strong and wondering what it might be like to never sail again. And yes, here comes the domestic twist. You got married. At least, that's what the records claim. A local girl, maybe a teenager, maybe your 14th wife. Historians still argue whether it was real love, a business arrangement, or just you playing house like a retired actor pretending he still belongs on stage. But there was a ceremony, there was a ring, maybe even cake. The townspeople watched from behind curtains, whispering, "Blackbeard, getting married, setting roots." You didn't bother correcting them, let them think what they want. You went to local taverns, but not for looting, for conversation. You told stories, exaggerated ones. You made the kids laugh and the men nervous. You paid for drinks with coins, not pistols. And slowly, painfully, you started to blend in. The pirates who visited Bath after that didn't come to plan attacks. They came for your advice. You had a porch, for heaven's sake. You sat in a chair and gave tips like a retired coach. "Don't overreach," you'd say. "A merchant ship's easier to take than a warship. Always bribe the harbor master first. Get yourself a fast sloop, not a heavy frigate. Trust me." People listened. They always did when you talked slowly, with that voice full of gravel and tide. You grew vegetables, maybe some corn. You might have kept a goat or two. There's a strange little rumor, fringe of course, that you even had a chicken coop and named the hens after former crewmates. Israel the rooster was apparently very aggressive. And then there were the letters. A few have been uncovered. Faded ink, tricky handwriting, but the signature? Clear as a cannon shot. Edward Thatch. You used your real name again. You wrote about land disputes, shipments, the rising cost of molasses. Not a word about piracy. You wanted legitimacy. You were craving it. And Governor Eden? He helped. He liked you, actually. Or maybe he just liked what you could offer. Muscle, money, influence. He gave you special permission to patrol the coast. Technically, you were privateering, helping protect North Carolina's shoreline. In reality, a legal loophole. You were still Blackbeard, but with paperwork. And people let it slide, because the pirates left them alone. The merchants were happy, and no one got hurt. But here's the kicker. You seem to like it. Not the fame, not the glory, the quiet. The air smelled like pine instead of powder. The stars were brighter. You didn't have to sleep with one eye open, except maybe when your goats wandered off. And for a second, a tiny one, it looked like the beast might stay in its cage. But then came the whispers, rumors that you were sneaking back out to sea, that Queen Anne's revenge wasn't entirely gone, that your men were regrouping, restocking, readying for something big. People said you were playing both sides, that you go quiet, then sail at night, that you were using Bath as a front. Some say that was true. Some say you were set up. Historians still argue whether those final voyages really happened or whether Governor Spotswood simply wanted a reason to finish the job. You knew the pressure was rising, that something would break, but you didn't run. You stayed. Maybe out of pride. Maybe because you thought your pardon would hold. Maybe because you genuinely believed you'd earned a second act, but deep down you knew. Peace was a costume too, not made of smoke or fire, but still thin, still stitched with secrets, still temporary. And when Maynard sailed in, sabers drawn and letters of marque in hand, you didn't board the next ship and vanish. You stood your ground, not because you were reckless, but because the farmer was real too. And maybe, just maybe, You wanted the world to see that. To see that Edward was never just Blackbeard. He was both. The terror and the tired man who just wanted a chair, a dog, and a quiet porch. You're dead, officially. Head gone. Body dumped. Tale told. But Bath, North Carolina, it never quite agrees. Because here's the thing. A man like you, so big, so loud, so feared, you don't just vanish? Not completely. Not in a place like this. In towns like Bath, the trees remember. The dirt remembers. People pass down whispers with their sweet tea. And over time, those whispers twist into legends. That body Maynard threw into the water? Some say it wasn't yours. One story goes that your crew pulled off a switch. That the man who got decapitated was a look-alike. Some poor deckhand with a similar beard and the misfortune of roughly the same face. Another tale says you jumped ship before Maynard's men arrived, slipped into the cypress woods like a ghost, and just walked away. Walked back home, back to your porch, to your goats, to your wife. Is it ridiculous? Sure. But then again, so is surviving 20 sword wounds and 5 gunshots in a single morning. And if anyone could fake their own death with style, it'd be you. There are people in Bath, still, to this day, who will point to an old grove behind what used to be your cabin and swear that's where you were really buried. Not in the sea, not under a pike, not in some shallow soldier's grave, but under oak roots, inland, on your own land. And the evidence? Well, it's not exactly a smoking cannon, but it's something. In the late 1800s, a farmer tilling his soil near Bath unearthed a human skull. Big, broad-jawed, a thick brow ridge, missing several teeth. He brought it to town, wrapped in burlap. People stared. Someone joked, "Looks like Blackbeard finally came up for air." The farmer laughed, but he didn't throw it away. He kept it on a shelf for years, until it vanished. Some say the skull was stolen by a traveler. Others say it's still hidden in the area, buried again, deliberately, to keep the mystery alive. Another story claims it ended up on the mantel of a local tavern, grinning down at drinkers for decades until one night during a hurricane, it just disappeared, sucked into the storm, gone. And then there's the soil itself. Archaeologists have combed Bath and the surrounding areas for traces of you. They found pieces, iron spikes, ship fittings, a rusted flintlock, and they found things they don't talk about in the official reports. A buried button with an ornate T, a charred corner of wood carved with the initials E.T., maybe a coincidence, maybe campfire fiction, but enough to keep people guessing. Historians still argue whether you could have made it back to land after Maynard's assault, whether anyone could survive wounds like yours. Most say no, but some keep their voices quiet, eyes thoughtful. Because if Edward Teach was buried in the ground, not the sea, it changes everything. It means the story didn't end with a bang. It ended with a whisper. And Bath leans into that version. Every few years, someone tries to rediscover your grave. They dig behind the old cemetery fence near the cypress grove or beside the church ruins. So far, nothing confirmed. But the town keeps looking, keep hoping in a strange way that you're still there, close by. Because you never really left them. You show up in school projects and Halloween costumes. You're on postcards and murals. The local diner has a Blackbeard burger that's absolutely monstrous. Double patty, fried onion straws, and barbecue sauce that bites back. There's a local tour that follows your supposed walking path through town. The guide swears that some nights, if the fog rolls in just right, People see a tall man in the woods with a wide-brimmed hat, silently watching from the trees. You get festivals, parades, street names. You're the town mascot in a way, the hometown terror they secretly love, and all of it feeds back into the central rumor that you lived longer than the history books say, that you died, eventually, but on your own terms, and were buried under the pine needles you once walked across barefoot, quietly, anonymously, no fanfare, just earth. But if that sounds too gentle for a man of your stature, don't worry, the drama still follows, because even the most peaceful burial has ghosts, and your legend refuses to rest. There's a tavern near the edge of Bath Creek, just shy of where your house used to stand. Locals say on stormy nights, the lights flicker, bottles rattle on the shelf. And if it's really bad, the sound of boots pacing upstairs, slow and heavy. They call it Teach's Tap Room now. And the staff leaves a shot of rum on the bar every Halloween, just in case. Children leave little massages near your supposed gravesite, written on scraps of brown paper. They say things like, "I like pirates." Did you really have 14 wives? Are you lonely? And every once in a while, those scraps vanish, blown away maybe, or taken. Either way, the myth breathes. And in that soil, rich, dark, and whisper thick, people still feel you. Not the monster, not the legend, the man, the other Teach, Edward. And for the townspeople of Bath, that's enough. You've been dead a long time now, supposedly. Your beard is ash, your shipwreck is coral, your boots are probably somewhere in the Atlantic, being shared between 3 jealous octopuses. But strangely, you're more alive now than ever. Because here's the real kicker, the final trick you pulled. You became eternal. Not through gold, not through bloodshed, not through any treaty or pardon, but through myth, through stories. You wormed your way into pop culture and parked your boots on the coffee table of every generation since. And let's start with the obvious. You've been in movies. A lot of movies. There's the 1952 Technicolor classic, where you were played by Robert Newton. Big beard, even bigger accent. His take on RR basically rewired the world's idea of pirate speech forever. It's not even historically accurate, but it's stuck like barnacles. Thanks to Newton as Blackbeard, people now think every pirate spoke like a Cornish stage actor with a dental emergency. And that's your fault, or your gift. Fast forward a few decades, and you show up again, this time voiced by Ian McShane in Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides. Dark eyes, brooding presence, undead powers, and a ship that responds to a magical sword like a GPS-equipped murder yacht. You've also cameoed in cartoons, from Scooby-Doo to SpongeBob. Yes, Blackbeard and Bikini Bottom. Let that one settle in. Even Doctor Who gave you a nod, and if there's a clearer sign of cultural immortality, I haven't seen it. There's a stretch of coast in North Carolina where kids dress like you every October and roam the streets saying trick or treat in suspiciously gravelly voices. Some of them carry little plastic swords, others draw on beards with eyeliner. A few wear rubber band dreadlocks, which, let's be honest, feels historically shaky but adorably sincere. Your name's on restaurants, taverns, escape rooms, and hot sauce bottles. You're a brand. But even more than that, you're a vibe. There's something about Blackbeard that refuses to go away. Maybe it's the drama, maybe it's the contradictions. You were terrifying and weirdly noble, brutal but apparently charming. You burned matches in your beard like a demon, but also maybe named a goat after your first mate. And that duality, that's what sticks. Because the world doesn't need another perfect hero or cartoon villain. It needs complicated ones. It needs people like you who loved chaos but craved quiet, who could command fear and then retire to a cabin in Bath and try to grow corn. Historians still argue whether you were a genius strategist or just lucky, a cold-blooded killer or a misunderstood rebel, a servant of an empire or an enemy of it. The truth is, probably, yes, you were all of it. That's why novelists and game designers and comic book artists keep circling back to you like seagulls over a fish cart. They take your story, twist it, polish it, remix it. Sometimes you're a villain. Sometimes you're a freedom fighter. Sometimes, like in that musical that briefly swept the New York underground, you're a misunderstood anti-capitalist with a peg leg and a soft spot for poetry. No, seriously, that happened. There's a bar in Tokyo that has a drink named the Edward. It's smoky and intense, and it comes in a glass with a little wooden ship floating in it. The bartender lights the rim on fire and tells you to conquer it before it conquers you. There's a tour in Nassau where a guide dresses as you and leads tourists down cobbled alleys. He stays in character the whole time, even when someone spills a mango smoothie on his boots. Even more niche? Some maritime museums host Blackbeard night sleepovers where kids unroll their sleeping bags beside cannons and hear stories about how your ghost still haunts the Queen Anne's Revenge, which, by the way, was found. Well, most of it. In 1996, off the coast of Beaufort, North Carolina, underwater archaeologists uncovered a wreck they're pretty sure belonged to your ship. They've hauled up anchors, deck guns, surgical tools. Yes, you had a surgeon. Even a tiny bit of gold dust hidden in a cannon chamber. There was a pewter syringe that still held traces of mercury, probably used to treat syphilis. Told you it wasn't all treasure maps and parrots. They even found lead shot engraved with tiny symbols, possibly magical protection charms. Because you didn't just fight with steel, you played the fear game, and you played it well. The wreck is still being studied, slowly, carefully. Every artifact is a breadcrumb, every nail a whisper. The team treating these barnacle-covered relics with reverence, because they're touching you, or what's left of you. And every time a new piece is revealed, another article gets written, another documentary is aired, another podcast episode drops, and just like that, you return. Again. What's wild is how often people misquote you. You didn't really say half the things the internet credits you with, like, "Damnation seize my soul if I give you quarters." That line might be apocryphal. Or maybe you said it once, dramatically, and someone jotted it down 30 years later, probably drunk. Either way, it works. It sounds like you. Like something you'd toss over your shoulder as you lit your beard on fire and walked into the wind. Because myth isn't about truth. It's about belief. And people believe in you, in the idea of you. A man who made his own rules, who lived loud and died louder, but maybe, just maybe, slipped away and lived quietly too. A farmer, a mentor, a husband, a ghost, a cautionary tale and a bedtime story. You, Blackbeard, are all of that. And the afterlife you built is made not of flames and brimstone, but of stickers on water bottles, keychains and gift shops, and 10-year-olds who read about you once and never forgot. You're a campfire classic now, a barstool legend, an icon in cargo boots and smoke, and long after your bones have crumbled, long after your flag's been folded and your final sloop rots into splinters, they'll still be talking, still wondering, still searching, because Edward Teach isn't just history. He's what history wants to be when it grows up. A little louder, a little darker, a little more fun. And now, as your ship finally fades behind the mist, As the cannons quiet and the sails fall still, let's slow down. Let the waves settle. Feel the deck vanish beneath your feet, traded once again for something softer. Blankets, pillows, the hush of your own breath. You've traveled a long way tonight, across centuries, through storms, under flags both feared and admired. You've seen fire and gold, betrayal and redemption. You've walked in the boots of a pirate and the sandals of a farmer. But now the lanterns are dimmed. The creak of the rigging gives way to the rhythm of sleep. You don't need to keep watch anymore. No enemies on the horizon, no sails to trim. Just the hush of Carolina trees, the low song of a creek nearby, and maybe, if you listen closely, the faint laugh of a man with wild eyes and a beard full of smoke. He's not angry, not loud, just watching, grinning, tipping his hat as you drift further into dreams. So go ahead. Let your thoughts drift like a rowboat on still water. No compass, no crew, no need. The stars know where you're headed, and for now there's nothing more you need to do but float, eyes closed, breathing slowly. The legend can wait until morning. Sweet dreams.